All right, so John is not here to introduce tonight's speaker, who none of you know at all. But Ham was willing to give our presentation tonight on Mars, and so I'm going to hand it off to Ham.
Yeah, I'm going to need to wait out. I'll leave it, Mark. Anybody ever get here? Move up here. Get into the right. For those of you who don't know me, and I probably would say everybody, maybe only one or two in this room actually know my full name. My full name is Alexander Hamilton Hilliard III. Yeah, I should have money, but I don't. And as a little boy, that was kind of hard at school back, I'm not going to say how many years ago. It was kind of hard for that young man to write all that stuff down, so Ham has been my name all my life.
Because you were in school with Alexander Hamilton?
Yeah,
Is it confusion?
And I'm the only Ham in here. Okay? And why tonight?
What street do you live on?
Yeah, bacon. Ham on bacon. Okay. I was asked, the reason I was asked to do this was that I made an announcement a couple times about Armed Forces Day coming up. And we're going to get to that. But I figured there's probably some folks in here that don't know much about MARS. MARS stands for the Military Auxiliary Radio System. MARS was started back in the 1920s, and this was just prior to World War II. And the military was getting into this brand new technology called radio. And they didn't have a whole lot of people that knew much about radio, so they enlisted hams to teach the radio forces back in the 20s to get the military up to speed with that new technology. And it started out Army, what was it, Pat? Where's Pat? There you go. What was it? Army Amateur Radio System, something like that, wasn't it?
Something like that.
Yeah. It started out with a lieutenant in Signal Corps. So anyway, they did that, and then most all of those people were probably drafted into World War II and into Korea. And then Mars took on another mission. And a lot of you probably know about this mission. Some of you may have had been a benefactor of the mission that Mars had. And the Mars, without being a secondary thing to the military, they sent messages from all overseas back to loved ones at home, absolutely free. So if you were stationed in Germany, or you were stationed in the Far East, or you were stationed in Africa, or you were even in the South Pole, Mars would take your free messages, and your loved ones would get hold of a Mars operator and have them send a message to you. Lots of daddies found out about their babies through Mars. And I was actually benefited from a Marsgram. My dad spent 32 years in the Navy. He was aboard the carrier Forrestal on the Yankee Station in the Gulf of Tonkin, 1967, when she caught fire. 168 men lost their lives in that fire. And I was stationed in Korea. And I had no way. You couldn't just pick up the phone and call somebody back then. And so I went to my orderly room and talked to the first sergeant. And of course he said, can't do anything when Red Cross notifies us. But he said, I'd pack a bag if I were you. So I did. I packed a bag. Later on that day, I got a call to the orderly room, and of course my heart sank. I figured it was bad news. Got to the orderly room, and it was a Mars operator in Seoul, Korea, who had a message from my dad that he was fine, and he would write later. He also sent 3,800 messages off the carrier Forrestal to families. He was also a ham radio operator. And he spent hours and hours sending these messages out to families to let them know their loved ones were okay. So Mars had a very good, very important mission in my mind back then. We don't have that mission anymore. Because now everybody, all they got to do is reach in their pocket and get their cell phone and call anywhere in the world. So our mission has changed. Mars is now under a Undersecretary of Defense. It's out of the hands of the military, and we are their backup to their backup for communications with active military units. So, if you notice on our emblem up there, it shows Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force. Well, there is no Navy and Marine Corps anymore. The Navy sunsetted their operation about 7 or 8 years ago. So it's just Army and Air Force now. A little bit different, the two units. We do operate together, but Army does it a little different than Air Force does. So, to say that, I've got some of the slides to show, but I want to tell you about, get you an introduction to the Armed Forces Day. Armed Forces Day is actually May the 20th, something like that, but it's also the weekend of Dayton Hamfest. So they changed the communications exercise to the weekend before, May the 13th. The whole idea behind this is to allow hams to talk to military stations and allows the military to know that they, in case of a national emergency or something, that there would be ham radio operators out there that could assist the military in their operations. Back there on the table, I've got 4 or 5 copies of the stations that will be on the air on the 13th May. I've got it also put it up on the computer here as we go along. So Mars is a very worthwhile organization. It's kind of dull at times, but there's not a whole lot that, when you practice, you get bored real quick. So we do a lot of message handling. Most everything we do now is digital, and it's encrypted because we do interface with active military units. So anything we send over the air has to be encrypted. So it's a lot different than it was 10 years ago when we used voice communications and everything else. Now it's pretty much all digital. It's simple to do. It's not difficult. No. But anyway. So let's talk a little bit about Mars. Navy, Marine Corps. I keep the Marine Corps on there, then the Army and the Navy, because I have a rich Navy background. I grew up on a lot of Navy bases. I went to 10 different schools in 12 years. And the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard is kind of used to be part of the Navy, kind of in Mars, but they have their own program now. So they're and we look at tri-service, the joint service Mars. We're all one. 10, 15 years ago, we couldn't talk to the Army couldn't talk to us, we couldn't talk to the Navy couldn't talk to us. It made it kind of a ridiculous situation. They took it out of the hands of the military, put it under an undersecretary in the Department of Defense, and now we can all talk together. So it makes it a whole lot easier. Of course, Joint Service Mars, Armed Forces Day communications test. And again, like I said, this was an opportunity to allow hams. It's a split frequency test. The military stations will be transmitting on military frequencies, and hams will be on regular ham radio frequencies. So we'll be out there at Millington. We'll be transmitting on military frequencies and have our receivers set in the ham bands. We'll announce where we're listening, and so it's a split frequency operation. All right, we're at the Naval Support Activity Mid-South, Millington, Tennessee. Even though the Navy doesn't have a Mars organization, our mission is to support the military. And that place out there in Millington is kind of important. That's where all the guys get sent. That's where all the orders are issued. That's where when they get through at one duty station, these guys send them to another duty station. It all comes out of Millington. Promotions, all that good stuff. Bureau personnel. So it's in some sort of national emergency, it might be a good time for them to might be in some important place that they need to have communication. So even though they not have Navy Mars anymore, we have, and they kicked us off the base too, by the way. So, but we have a spot on the old north side that the city of Millington has been gracious to allow us to set up. So we do have we'll be operating two stations, 40-meter, one on a 40-meter frequency and one on a 20-meter frequency. So we need operators. Lots of change. We've come a long way. Here's a picture of a guy in the 1950s. You look on it, it's pretty vintage radio there on his, matter of fact, one piece, let's see here. I have, anyway, I had a piece of one of the 5 megahertz frequency black box right up on top there. I had one of those for a while. And couldn't figure out what I could do with it. That's old stuff. Mine's new, so I finally got rid of it. Anybody know who Barry Goldwater was?
He's a Republican.
Okay, some of you are probably a little younger than most everyone does. He was one of our politicians. K7UGA. He was also a Mars member. Now, he had plenty of money and plenty of radio stuff, so it had that. There's Camp Pendleton, it's the Mars station. Actually, I think they called it the ham radio station, but it was the Mars station at Camp Pendleton. And here is the setup in South Vietnam. Air Force Mars, or the Air Force, I won't say Air Force Mars, the Air Force pretty much ran all of the Mars stations in country. And the part of the Mars that I belong to is the 4th Communications Wing, and I'm in the Tennessee group. But our wing commander, up until about 6 months ago, was Sal Nagler. And he was the chief operator. He was the chief of all the Mars stations in Southeast Asia. And that's all he did was travel around and with units that had Mars stations. AIR was the state Mars call of that particular station. And it was pretty active in Vietnam. A lot of activity. I got into Mars middle 70s. Well, matter of fact, Vietnam was still in going on when I got in. And we had a lot of, almost every night we had message traffic coming from Vietnam or Germany. It was quite active up through the 70s and 80s. As Vietnam dropped off, and we lost a lot of that activity. And eventually we got kind of into limbo. What do we do? And that's when they started changing our missions and finally come up with the final mission. That's not my station. I don't know who's member. Whoever that is got plenty of money. I wasn't going to put that on the slide, because I said, well, I guess, there's probably 2 or 3 people here in the group who probably like that, something afford to have something like that. We also work with shares. Mars members can also check into shares. I guess they do a pretty good job. They always want to meet when I can't, so I'm a shares member, but I don't check in that often. Here we are, Air Force Mars is assigned to the first Special Operations Group. What they do, our biggest thing is they have Mars radio, and that's the Air Force Mars phone patch net. Well, what do they need a lot of phone patches for with cell phones and everything else? Well, it's kind of hard for a B-52 or C-5 or C-17 out over the Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean to get cell service. So most of the military units don't do HF much anymore. So what Mars Radio does is if an aircraft has some problem, they call Mars Radio, and Mars Radio uses telephone, calls the command. And a lot of times what they're doing is they're letting the command know they've got a problem with something that's broken and they need to have it fixed as soon as they land, and give them a little bit of an update, what parts or whatever, so forth and so on. Some of them are officers calling their commander and say, oh, I'm going to be late for dinner, or calling their wife, I'm going to be late for dinner. They do a little bit of that too. So, but that's what Mars Radio does, 24/7. These guys are volunteers. They take a 4-hour shift all night long, every day. So if you're interested in that, that's something that you can do with Mars. And that's Mars Radio, it tells you there. I'm not sure when this slide this presentation was put together, but whenever it was, they did over 2,000 phone patches in a year's time. That runs out to 5 or 6 a day. So it's well where 60% is official business and the other 40% is wife or girlfriend or whatever, you know. But I know a couple of guys in our wing are members of Mars Radio, and they take their shift, and they don't have to sit by the radio, but you know, it's not like they're sitting there listening to static for their 4 hours, but they've got to be where they can hear one of the units, aircraft call or something like that. I've got the military support net, MSN. It formerly was called the SpaceNet, and it was backup for all the shuttle missions. But since the shuttles were not flying anymore, they created the MSN-Net, and it's there to be there ready for the Homeland Security or the sheriff or whoever might need it. So that's another, you can see there that it's available to support other U.S. government operations, including space activities. Well, right now we're getting ready sometime in the near future to send somebody back to the moon, so there may be some more needs in this next. All right, Mars is at the Pentagon. They have a station at the Pentagon, and it will be on the air Armed Forces Day. This is the Air Force. Army's got one. There'll be 3 different stations there. There's Army, our Air Force, which will be call sign AGA 3DC. The Army is AAN 3 PNT, and the Department of Defense is WAR, WAR. So they'll be there. Ham radio support. We used to, back before COVID, well, I don't know, Pat, how many years ago did we start? I remember going to engineers down to, what was that, Inslee Bottoms? Yeah. And working. So Pat and I have been doing, sometimes just he and I, doing Armed Forces Day from the Memphis area. We did put the Corps of Engineers on the map. And then later on, we went to Marianna, Arkansas at the Huxtable pumping station. Really unique place. It pumped the St. Francis River into the Mississippi in high water to keep flooding all that farmland over there. And we had lots of support with the local ham radio, Delta Club, MARA, and a lot of the Mars members. That was 2009 Armed Forces Day. Those were all the hams and everybody that came to Huxtable to operate Armed Forces Day. We made about 500 contacts that year. And some of you guys are here. Let's see, who can I recognize? Well, there's Joe. And, well, it's kind of blurry. I can't, my old eyes just don't make it. I can't make out a lot of those. A lot of the guys there.
And what about your Yazoo radio?
Oh, yeah. If anybody wants to know about a Yazoo handy talkie, the top floor of that dam is about 100 feet off the water. I dropped my Yazoo handy talkie off. It hit the cement and bounced, and the battery came out of it, and I put it all back together, and it worked. I still got it today. It's a good testimony for Yazoo. If perchance you are interested in joining, all it takes is 12 hours of water. That's one check-in a week. Air Force has two daily nets. We have one in the morning, one at night. You're asked what they do on the first day of each week. They do send out a tasking message, and what they're asking you to do is some sort of little insignificant thing, but the whole idea is to keep you in practice of sending the digital messages and so forth. We have our own program. Works like a champ, very simple. You fill in the blanks and hit send, and away it goes. So it's nothing that's really difficult. But you are required to a minimum of 12 hours of water. And like I tell people, that equates to one check-in a week. And you can satisfy that. There it is. You must be 18. And you have to hold any class FCC license. So if you're a technician and you think, oh my gosh, all I can do is FM on 2 meters and so forth, if you want to get to Mars, you can do HF. If you're interested in doing, and you would like to figure out how it is to talk across the world, this is a really good opportunity because the license for Armed Forces Day, I am the person in charge. So POC is what they call it. I'm the POC, point of contact. So we'll be set up at the Millington Fire Training Center, which is on the north side of the south end of the runway. Can't miss it. It's got a fire truck sitting out in front of it, so you can't miss it. We'll be on the air from about 7 a.m. on the 13th to about 5 o'clock, or when the propagation drops out, or most of the guys in years past, the ones that are interested in making contacts with all the military things, they're usually done and over with by lunchtime or so after. So we won't be out there probably all day, but I told them we'd be there at 5 o'clock. So if you're interested,
60 meters?
we will. I'm not going to be operating 60 now.
That's the unique one, isn't it?
Well,
unfortunately, the secondary.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is a shared frequency. And we're not. Mars is not the primary, nor is it the secondary. So we normally, if they're going to do anything on 60 meters, they normally have to get special permission from the FCC or not the FCC. whatever the national frequency coordinator happens to be, huh?
NAIA.
Something, I'm not sure. We'll be on 15.8, be transmitting on 15.8 megahertz on, and listening on 20 meters. And our 40 meter station will be down around 74 megahertz, 7.4 megahertz, and they'll be listening on 40 meters. So, I've got a list, I'll put the list up here in a minute. Yeah, like I said, I have 4 or 5 copies back there on the table. Somebody had already grabbed them. But it will be sometime between now and May the 13th, ARRL will have it posted on their website. Right now, it's only posted on DoD Mars, and I'm not sure that if you're not a Mars member that you can pull it down. I went looking for it yesterday and couldn't find it, so I already had my copy. So I don't know where it is right now, but I do know that ARRL will publish it, but it's probably won't be there on the 1st of May. Anyway, if you're interested, you send an email to join at mars-mill.us. And they in turn will get back with you and send you an application. Used to, I had carried applications in my briefcase, but now they have to go through the national. So I recruited 2 people this year, and got one's completed his training and has his ACAL, and one is still in training and he has a TCAL. My call is Alpha Foxtrot Alpha 4 Whiskey Zulu. That's my Air Force Mars call sign. When you're in training, you'll get a Tango call sign. So your call sign will be AFT4, and then whatever others. And that's 6 months. You have 6 months to do the training. It can be done in 6 weeks if you put your mind to it. And then once you completed that, then your T, you will drop the T and get an A call. So, yeah. www.dodmars.org. I'm not sure if you can get it off of that or not. That's a DoD website, and it's supposed to be there. So, any questions so far? Yes.
Do you have to be affiliated with the military to do
No.
this?
No. In the beginning, and the reason they had the Air Force, Army, and Navy Marine Corps was a loyalty factor. They seemed that if a ham radio guy, somebody that was ham radio that had served in the Navy or Army or Air Force would tend to gravitate towards the Mars organization from whence they spent their time. But that's not necessary that you be affiliated with the military in any way. I was in the Army, and I'm in Air Force. So it's just a loyalty factor. I think that's long past. Matter of fact, when the Navy Marine Corps sunsetted their organization, half of them went to Army, half of them came to Air Force. So it's I don't know. To me, it's worthwhile. I realize that there's not a whole lot of active, fun games, interesting stuff that we could do that we don't. But it's like the slogan that the ARRL uses: when all else fails, ham radio. Well, it's the same thing but at Mars. If the military has a problem, and I don't know how many of you have been in the military, but I bet you the ones that have been realize that the military is not the smartest, most intelligent group of people. So there's a possibility that we could be used in certain situations. So, yes.
Can you give us a sort of an example of like what radio traffic is like on that net versus ham, the difference maybe?
Okay. Let's talk about Tennessee phone net. You checked into that? Okay. All right. Well, you got a bunch of guys trying to talk all at the same time.
Full problem. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Most of the Mars nets right now, if for instance, if I checked in tonight, the net control would have come on, and he would have activated the net, and then he would have asked for check-ins from using alphabetical of your last two.
You want
He
the
would ask
preamble? I know it by heart.
Huh?
You want the preamble? I know it by heart.
Yeah. So he would. I would get the check in first because he would ask for Quebec through Zulu, and since my last two suffix starts with W, so I would check on that. Then they would go down and do hotel through Papa and then Alpha through hotel. But first, as he opened the net, he would ask for traffic. So the person had traffic. He would list his traffic. And at some point, if it's routine traffic or just traffic for an individual, then after the check-ins, they would pass their traffic. It's all digital, so there's no voice traffic. If it's a priority or something for the whole net, then they usually do that before they start check-ins. So that's basically what it is. And then, like I say, every Sunday night they transmit in Monday night on the Sunday night nets, and the Monday morning and evening, and Tuesday morning and evening, and Wednesday morning they transmit the tasking message. And it's nothing simple. I think the one we had this week was they wanted to know how many letters. It's called what they did. They send out what they call an RI, which is a request for information, and then you would send back an RRI, which is a reply for requested information, and they usually have a by a certain time. After that, it's no longer valid. So this time, after all this stuff, given the date and the time and all this good stuff, you call sign, they want to know how many letters was in your last name. Now you think, well, that's kind of stupid. Just practice.
Okay.
It's just practice. It's something you never do. I think the one before that, they want to know how many days from now to Easter or something like that. So it's just something for practice. Okay.
So it's digital. So is it using something like FT8 or what protocols?
It's using a military protocol.
Okay.
110 Alpha is the designation for it, and it is a standard military digital format. Now, we can't transmit at the speeds that the military can, but we can interface directly with a military unit if we had to. So it's a specified, specific digital sequence, and it's all encrypted. So you don't, you can probably find 110 Alpha on the internet someplace, but you won't have the encryption.
So the magic is in the software that you use, and then it sends it out over whatever frequency. Cool.
Yeah, it's neat. You can do it up and put it in the outbox. Anybody ever use WinLink?
Yeah, there you have it.
It's kind of like WinLink. You put it in the outbox and the guy says send the net, you reach down and hit send, and there it goes.
Okay.
Okay.
And so when you were talking about the planes and stuff, that they do it the same way?
No, that phone patch net is voice.
Voice, that's voice. Okay.
But they if they're going to do anything connected with their mission or anything like that, they will do it encrypted on that 110 Alpha. But they'll use the radios on the ship, on the aircraft would probably put out several thousand watts that we can't put out, and their speeds up I don't know what the top speed is. Our top speed is about 600 baud, so it's not very fast. Any other questions?
Yeah, so is the Mars mod needed on your HF rig to participate?
Yes, and all ham radios can be modified now. Okay, all the manufacturers have made it capable. Okay. In most cases, I don't deal with anything that's brand new, but radios that have been put out in the last, say, 10 years, most of them all require the removal of a 0 ohm resistor. Just go in there with a little soldering iron and reset it, and it's wide open. Mars CAP, what they call modifications. I don't know about some of these newer radios. I'm sure there's probably somewhere very simple like that. Kenwood came out, one all you did is go and find the green wire and cut it. The FCC didn't. The FCC didn't like that, so they had to change it.
Damn.
Yes.
The new radios, you gotta have your jeweler glasses on. And it's
Oh, yeah,
small as a grain
yeah.
of pepper.
It's
Small as a grain of
a
pepper.
grain of sand, guys. It's a grain of sand, believe me. I have to put on my glasses and my thing and a magnifying glass to find some of them. And then it's just a matter of basically you take a very small iron with a very narrow tip and and that's it. So it's nothing difficult. Now, if you buy a radio from a dealer and you have a Mars license, if you send them a copy of that Mars license, they will do it for you. But I'm sure for a price. I don't know.
Giga Parts does it for about $35.
Yeah. So, but again, unfortunately, we all suffer from the same malady. AGE. And when we get to the AGE, then your eyes start going and everything else. And then, believe me, some of those tiny little surface mount things are very, very hard to find, very hard to see.
If you get a new radio, you want like Giga Parts to do it so it doesn't void your warranty, because you got to wait a year if you're going to do it yourself without voiding your warranty.
But all right, let's see here. I want to put up those frequencies for you. Let me get out of here. And let's put this up right here. All right, here we go. Annual Armed Forces Day Crossband Test, 13 May 2023. You read a lot of it. All right, here we go. Fort Huachuca, Fort Huachuca, Fort Hoochie Coochie, whatever you want to call them. They'll be on, and there's the frequency. They'll be on 20 meters and 18 megahertz. Alpha Alpha Charlie, which is Barrow Army Reserve Center in Kentucky. I believe that's probably around Fort Knox somewhere. They'll be on 4 megahertz, 5 megahertz. There's your 60 meters, Joe. There's one on 60 meters. 6 megahertz, 13 and 18. Alpha Alpha November. That's U.S. Northern Command. That is the Central Military Command for the Northern Hemisphere. They will also be on 6 megs, 14 megs. Alpha Delta Bravo, Camp Foster, Okinawa. Years past, I had a station from Guam on there, at least not on there this year. Alpha Golf Alpha 4 Romeo Oscar will be Robbins Air Force Base in Warner Robins, Georgia. If you don't know about Warner Robins, that's where they send all the airplanes to be torn apart, put back together again. They do everything. C5, the whole business. It's quite an operation down there. And there we are at the bottom. Oops, too far. Alpha Foxtrot Mike 4 November Papa Delta. Now, The reason we went with that long call sign is November Papa Delta was the call sign of NAS Millington back during the war in the 50s. That was their call sign. So I incorporated that in the call sign.
You use full phonetics on that? When y'all call, you use full phonetics?
We will start out using, I'll start out using Alpha Foxtrot Mike 4 November Papa Delta. Once I do that, then I'll just QRZ, this is November Papa Delta. So I'll cut it short. All right, cyberspace. That's wrong way. Yeah, that's Army. That's at Fort Meade, Maryland. That's where all the spooks live. Okay, so they'll be on there. Then we got WAR, Pentagon. They're going to be 4, 5, 7, 14, and 20 megahertz. And then we got Hancock Field, New York, Alpha Golf Alpha 2 Sierra Yankee. The guy that's putting that on used to be with the National Guard here in Memphis, and he transferred up there, and that's where his girlfriend lived. So they're putting that on. It's Scott Air Force Base. That's headquarters, Air Force Mark. Travis Air Force Base, California. Now here's something that probably will interest a lot of you. There you have USS Yorktown from South Carolina. The USS Iowa battleship, Los Angeles, California. The USS Midway aircraft carrier, San Diego. LST 325, Evansville, Indiana. Now, there is a little history to that. Some of you may have remembered. They found this LST in Italy. And the guys went over there, some of them were the ones that were actually stationed aboard it, and they refurbished it, reconditioned it, sailed it across the Atlantic Ocean, up the Mississippi River, stopped at Memphis, by the way, to Evansville. So that's a little bit of history there. Naval Academy, Annapolis, Maryland, they'll be on the air. Newport Naval Radio Station Museum in Newport, Rhode Island. And here you go, Coast Guard Base, Alameda, California. Schoolhouse, Savannah. It's a cyber training center in Savannah, Georgia. It's where they train the spooks. Okay? And Naval Air Station, Whidbey Island, Oak Harbor, Washington. So there are all kinds, there's going to be all kinds all over, whatever propagation. Last couple of years, propagation sucked. So it wasn't a lot of fun. Propagation is better this year. I don't know what it'll be on the 13th of May, but if the propagation is good, like I said, many years we were over at Huxtable, we made 500-600 contacts all over the United States. There's quite a few European stations. It'll be interesting. And they will send out what they call the Chiefs broadcast. Not the Chiefs. The Secretary of Defense will send out a message. And unfortunately, I don't understand why nobody at military stations are going to be able to copy the Mill Standard 110. So, but a couple of them will send it out with radio teletype. WAR will do radio teletype and CW. So there will be an opportunity to copy the Secretary of Defense's message, and then they send it in, and you get some sort of nice certificate from them, I'm assuming. You will have to go to probably DoD Mars and request a QSL. Each unit used to send out their own QSL cards, but they got a little expensive, so the Army's going to send them all out. If you request it. If you don't request it, you won't get it. And the Secretary of Transportation will go out 1400 Zulu and 2000 Zulu. Now, we operate in Zulu time. Okay? If you don't know what Zulu time is, you need to look it up. It's a standard in the military. Every military unit operates on Zulu time, so they're all on the same time. No matter where they are in this world, they're on Zulu time. It may be like here in Memphis right now on daylight savings time. We're 6 hours different from Greenwich Mean Time. But
AM or 5?
huh? No, 5. You're right. You're right. 5. Daylight savings time is 5. The regular time is 6 hours. So, but that's like I say. There's a few copies of this back there. My budget didn't allow me to make 10 or 15 copies. 3 pages long. My budget just doesn't allow that. So, because you can get it, like I said, ARRL will publish this exact file. When and ever, it probably won't get on ARRL's website until the 1st of May. But it'll be there. Now, you may say, that's great. What are we going to do? If you come out to Billington, what are we going to have in mind? I don't think this first picture has anything to do with Billington. No, yes it is. That's the building we're on, and this was done back in April of last year when we put up 30 feet of tower on top of this building. There you can see, and we have a 4 on it, an A4S with the 40-meter add-on. That's our main antenna. We also have 2 long wires. And that's Alpha Foxtrot Alpha 4 Uniform India up on the tower. Dan Columbus. Anybody know Dan? Okay. He wouldn't let me climb. And we had Alpha Foxtrot Alpha 4 Foxtrot Uniform. He's out there helping us.
Who was that?
Steve Clark.
Who?
Steve Clark.
Okay.
Former
FedEx.
FedEx employee. I'm not sure who that is on the end of the wire there, but the one pulling hard, he's my active duty warrant officer. Whiskey Zero Charlie Papa Oscar. So that's what we've got. We've got a pretty nice setup out there. We're soon going to have a 2-meter full 40 beam on top of that little mast right there, and there'll be a repeater on it. So it won't not going to be a wide area repeater, but it'll cover pretty much that end of the county. 2 house brackets drilled through the wall. The top one goes through one of the roof beams, so it's tied into the roof and everything. Bottom one goes through the wall. It's got 2x4, so it's the stress and everything on the whole wall, not just a couple of things there. There's can't see much against the sky. That's about a little better shot. That rope you see there is my flagpole. Whenever we're in residence out there, the flags are flying. So if you happen to come by there and see the flags up there, you know somebody's there. If the flags aren't there, we're not there. And that's we have that whole top floor. and on the building. And the city of Millington graciously pretty much let us do it pretty much what we want to do. I don't have any recent pictures of the inside. We've got 2 stations set up, and Rick, you've been out there, so you know what we got set up out there. So we're looking for operators. You know, we have about 5 Mars members that come out there regularly. We always invite non-hams. We'll have several non-hams that will probably drop by, and the whole idea is to get them on the radio, and let them experience what ham radio is about, and possibly we can recruit some new members that way, not necessarily to Mars, but to ham radio. It's actually what it's referred to as MERS, Millington Emergency Emergency Radio System. Because we did that so that it makes the city of Millington feel warm and fuzzy. They don't want us, but they do want us. Just like Memphis, Shelby County does, pretty much. They want us, but they don't want us.
You have a generator there?
No, we do not. That is the only drawback to here. Where we were on the Navy base, when we had the station at the Navy base, we did have our own generator. But they don't have it here. But I'm only 10 minutes away, and I have a generator. One of the other people there, they live in Covington, and he has a propane generator, which they will allow us to run it on the roof. So
How many watts you run?
I've got a 600 watt amplifier. Now I don't have to run that, but I do, and we've got plenty of power. You know, I mean, as far as the electric power goes. They used to keep generators on the premise, but they've had a couple of break-ins, and that's what people go for, is generators. So we're not bringing any of our generators out. We're not such a necessary part of their system out there. So it's not like we have to have power. We lose power right away. We got time to bring power in if we need.
Who paid for the antenna?
Hmm?
Who paid for the antenna?
The tower is mine. I had it laid in my backyard, and I want to get rid of it.
So the military doesn't supply anything, huh?
Yes, all of the equipment that we're using right now was supplied by the military. When we moved out of the base, I did an inventory of all the equipment and turned it into the base and said, "Here, you know, since you're kicking me out, I won't be responsible for it." They didn't want to be responsible for it. They didn't want to store it. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. So we stored it. And when this came about, we said, "All right, we'll set it up." So that's why I designated it as a Mars station, because it is Mars equipment. But anyway, they bought the beam. They bought the radios and everything that we're using inside now. We also, several of us have donated equipment that's extra that we don't need so much. So we've got, And I just sold a bunch of stuff at Free Fest that was the Navy's, or was part of the ham shack that was getting ready to go to the dump. So I rescued it, and I sold a repeater and some duplexers and a Henry 3K Classic amplifier. So we do have a little money in the book. I do have. Anybody want to donate? I'll be happy to take donations today too. You know, we're always open to donate. Any other questions? Well, all right. I appreciate you listening to me ramble. And if you have any questions anytime or want to know something about joining Mars, I'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Take the time to look into it. Before we adjourn, does anybody else have anything that they need to announce or discuss? Any more questions for him? All right, can we get a motion?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, so Ham made the motion to adjourn. I heard Joe, WA4OBO, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, likewise.